So you ready to get started?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So this is episode 12, San Diego Hoops Report ZoomCast. I'm super excited to have Sarah Porter on here. She is a former All-State basketball player coming out of Horizon Christian Academy. Went on to play very high-level college basketball at Ole Miss, UC Santa Barbara, and Utah. And I just felt like she's somebody I've known for a while, and it just felt like somebody whose journey and whose experiences are some that really are inspiring in many ways. And then also a lot of these young athletes, especially these young female basketball players, can learn a lot, about the journey you've been on. So I always like to start the same way. So let's kind of get into when you first got introduced to the game of basketball.
Yeah, so I started playing basketball when I was 7 or 8. I had 2 older brothers who both played, and so kind of just came to me. My dad taught me how to play, taught me the basics, taught me how to shoot. And I did rec ball, YMCA, all of that. And when I was playing at the Y, there was this rule where there had to be like 2 girls per team if there was enough girls to play. And my dad was like, forget that. We're going to get all the girls on the same team. And so he did that and got all the parents on board. And there was I think only 2 boys on our team at the time. And we ended up winning the championship. And so just that kind of got me started and wanting to play at a competitive level. And I played in middle school as well. Played with my middle school team. First got introduced to AAU club ball by Coach Finchus Wynn. He started the program 80-20 basketball, which means 80% practice, 20% games. So he really taught me the fundamentals, ball handling, footwork, all of that. So that's where I really started to elevate my game. And he's the first to tell me that he saw me playing D1 basketball one day. And so since then, that was my dream. So,
did you play any other sports coming up?
Yeah, I played soccer. I played actually softball my freshman year of high school, but that was really it. I mean, I focused on basketball. So
it was something that you fell in love with pretty much from the start.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Did you watch a lot of basketball? And the reason why I asked that is before I think I know the answer based off of kind of how you play, but it's come up a lot in a lot of these interviews that a lot of kids in general, but more specifically girls, don't watch a whole lot of men or women basketball. So I'm curious if you watch.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the gym with watching my brother play in high school, but also as far as WNBA, I started watching the WNBA when I was in middle school, watching Candace Parker play with the Sparks. She was my role model at the time. But I mean, as far as age, not too much. My parents weren't too familiar with women's college basketball. It was they started gaining more interest as I started to gain more interest in the sport. But yeah, I mean, I didn't watch too much of college, but a lot of the Lakers, a lot of the Sparks. So yeah.
When did you feel like it was, when did it change from something you enjoyed, it was fun, to something that you really took serious?
I would say just that middle school time. I mean, a lot of people saw my potential and it took me time to realize that. And yeah, I would say about 8th grade, I wanted to play at an elite level, and just hearing that from my coach, it was just kind of a why not moment for me. So yeah.
And then you said you started playing club with Coach Wynn. Where else,
Mm-hmm.
How did your club evolve from, or your playing of club evolve from there, or what was kind of next in that? Because I know you mentioned 8th grade, it got kind of, you got really, really serious with it as far as club.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I guess that was around that time was a time for me to pick a high school as well. And I had really gotten close to Dejanay, which I was playing against her in middle school and playing against Janae and all of that. So that's why I chose to go to Horizon, to be in that family environment. I already knew Coach Carrington, knew a lot of the players that were already there. Yeah, from there, I just met a lot of people joining the AAU circuit in 8th grade. And that's how I met Coach Marlin as well. So that's why I chose to play EBO in high school.
So funny story about that. So when we first moved here, I was trying to find a school for my daughter, and we had tried to get into Bishops, we didn't get in or whatever. But I remember when we were trying to figure out what we were going to do next, I saw a highlight tape of you at Horizon, and I remember texting Marlon. I said, "I'm checking out this girl, Sarah Porter. Is that somebody you worked with?" And he was like, "Yeah, absolutely." So, that was a big, that and Dejanay was a big part of the reason why we kind of ended up there. So I don't even know if you realize that, but you helped recruit my daughter. And it's funny, I don't know if you know, the first time I met you, it's also I was taking my daughter on her visit, and you were actually watching film. It was the day of I think you guys were getting ready to go to Fresno to play in a state game. And Coach Carrington introduced me to you, and you were locked in watching some film. So just so you know, I had a very good first impression of kind of the work ethic and the mentality you had, even back then. Do you remember like that whole time getting ready for that playoff game? So I remember talking to, kind of follow as an outsider, kind of following that journey. You guys had a long trip up there, and kind of talk about that story a little bit.
I believe you might be talking about my senior year. Was it my senior year?
Yeah, it was your senior year.
We won,
it was your senior year.
Yeah. So, we had our regional game. We lost by 1 point to Sierra Canyon. I remember that. Yeah. And those were fun times. Our men's team was actually made it to the state championship that year. So, just preparing for those games. Those are teams that we weren't used to seeing because, in San Diego, you only play, San Diego teams. So I think that was different for us, was playing teams from LA in the NorCal area. It was just different, but a good experience.
I want to go back a little bit. I'm somebody who really obsesses about shooting technique and form, and and this is not just because you're on here. You could ask my son. I remember saying this about you a long time. You have one of the most flawless jump shots in terms of form, in terms of footwork, in terms of balance, in terms of a high release. Is that where'd that come from? Did someone actually teach you that way, or is it something you emulated? Because it's always mind-boggling to me when people will play basketball. And you have your outliers like the Reggie Millers, the people who have like unorthodox shots that go in. But it always killed me when why wouldn't you want it to look how a good shooter looks? So if I was saying, hey, watch somebody shoot, I would say, hey, watch Sarah. Everything she does is right. So is that something you picked up from watching, or is that, somebody trained you to kind of come down with your shot technique?
It was just training, really. My dad actually showed me how to shoot at first. But then with working with Coach Wynn in middle school, that's where I really locked down on my footwork and my balance. And then in high school, just getting a lot of reps, So, it's just a lot of repetition, and working with even Coach Lonnie, he coached with Horizon for like a year. So I would be in the gym with him all the time, just working on my footwork, getting into my, off the dribble jump shots and also just set shots. Just getting just reps at that. And that's one thing that separated me, I think, as a player, was just being able to shoot. And that's what my focus was. So.
And the thing, you mentioned repetition, and I think something else that I really love about your shot is the consistency. And I'm not even talking about it going in. The great shooters, every shot looks the same. Every catch is the same. Every release is the same. Every land is the same. And I think about somebody. I always think about, in terms of repetition, about Ray Allen, and the shot he made against the Spurs in the finals. And you could tell 85-90% of that was muscle memory of doing the same thing over and over again. So I think that kind of speaks to what you're saying in terms of just constantly getting those reps up.
Yeah, just reps, really. Getting on the gun, getting as much reps as you can. That's all you can do. So
when you're at Horizon, very solid program. You mentioned, you're playing with some people you've known a long time ago, some very talented kids. You mentioned Janae, you mentioned Dejanay, Nigeria. Talk about how your high school career was in terms of the familiarity of who you were playing with, but then staying, still playing at a high level, competing against the La Jolla Country Days, the Bishops. Just kind of talk about what your experiences were in high school.
They were, I mean, yeah, I think all three of us, me, Dejanay, and Janae, were all getting highly recruited. So it was just a matter of us finding our chemistry together, and working together outside of practice as well. We would be in the gym before on game days at 24-hour fitness before school started, and just we needed that chemistry in order to compete with Bishops and La Jolla Country Day, and we were the underdogs every year. But yeah, that's, I mean, we just made sure that we put in the prep that we needed to compete against those teams.
What kind of things did you learn, or what kind of um, how was the mentorship in terms of both on the court and off the court with Coach Carrington? Somebody I'm familiar with as well.
Yeah, I mean, she was a really good mentor for me. I mean, even just in my faith, basketball wise, helping me talk to coaches, college coaches, and even on the court. I mean, she was one of my teachers in the classroom as well. So, I mean, she really pushed me academically, on the court, and as just a person. So I think having her in my life in high school really helped me build like just that solid foundation as a person and a player. So.
And then you mentioned Coach Lonnie. You worked with him. I know I saw you continue to work with him even after he wasn't even at Horizon anymore. Kind of talk about what kind of impacts he had on you as a player.
He really just helped me get the dog like out of me. Like I was a very non-physical player, but he helped me find just like that my niche, and like really pushed me to get in the gym. He really basically told me like the only person stopping me is me, and he really ingrained that in my mindset. So he would offer, like, he would just tell me, hey, just let me know when you want to get in the gym, like I'm down. And so I would let him know. We'd get in on the weekends. We really, anytime we could get in the gym, we were getting in the gym. And I think that helped me in college as far as my work ethic. Like I already had that established going into college. So, and he really helped me with that.
So I'm a little interested in this because, you're what would be classified as a big guard. So when you were younger, did you find yourself having to play like a post position, or was it that your shooting was probably advanced at an early age that they felt the need to let you do some perimeter stuff?
I think like at the time I was just like too good as a guard to be a post player. But also like Coach Wynn, he forced me to get good at my ball handling skills. So like that helped me just not even have to worry about playing post, because I knew how to handle the ball to an extent. I mean, but I mean, shooting was definitely my main focus. So
it's good because as somebody who's coached youth basketball, I think it's terrible when kids get pigeonholed into a position because you don't know if a kid's going to stop growing. So you decide that they're a post player, and then everybody catches up to them, and then they're an undersized post who can't handle the rock or shoot the ball. So it sets you up. So it's good that like I said, I'm sure that advanced shooting helped them keep you from anchoring in the post, and they smart offenders to let you get out there and shoot the ball. So
I mean, that was like one of the first things that he told our team was everybody on the team needs to learn how to handle the ball, because you don't know how tall you're going to be when you get older. Mm-hmm. So.
And if you look at how the game is now, there's no positions anyways. Everybody handles it. Everybody shoots it. So Fentress was ahead of himself. That's good for you.
Yeah, he was.
So going back to your high school days, both high school and club, when did the college interest start to pick up, the offers, and then you start kind of focusing on kind of where you see yourself wanting to pursue college at the next, or pursue basketball at the next level?
Mm-hmm. So I played varsity as a freshman, and then I started playing EBO after that season. And Coach Marlin put me on the top team, and I was actually really intimidated by that.
So but let me stop you. Give me some names on that team.
We had Bryn, I'm blanking right now. We had Amy Calloway on that team. She played at UNLV.
Yep.
I mean, there was a lot of girls. It was a lot of girls from Bishops on the team, and so that went
So
and
that's where
played at
the
the higher level.
intimidation came from.
Yeah. And then just being the only like freshman, incoming sophomore on the team, really intimidating, but it also just went to show like the potential that I did have to play at the high level. And then I also I lifted weights in high school. We had a solid weight coach at Horizon, but I was also lifting with my brother at 24 Hour Fitness. So that also kind of made me a bigger guard in a sense. And I think coaches kind of saw just like how my body kind of changed over the years in high school and how I was growing. And that was I think that kind of separated me as well. But yeah, just yeah.
So your mom, I remember your mom telling my wife a story once about, I think it was that first summer when she said you were nervous, because I think it was at the same time as my daughter's first summer, and she was kind of reflecting on that and saying how she remembers you being nervous on a trip, but she says when you came back, she said you noticed you came back really confident and said this is definitely what I want to do.
Yeah. And I guess so going into that sophomore year, I was getting letters and I had my first 2 offers. So I was getting that exposure that I needed going into my sophomore year. And so from there I was like, well, I'm hungry for more. I want more offers. So just from there, I guess my work ethic really, really elevated.
So let's talk about how we ended up settling on Fresno State.
Yeah, so they were one of the first teams to recruit me in my high school process. So I had already developed a solid relationship with the coaches, and they were going to the NCAA tournament a couple years in a row before I committed there. So that was my main reason. One of my main reasons in choosing Fresno State was the coaching staff and the fact that they were going to the NCAA tournament. But they left after I signed my NLI. But luckily, I had improved a lot my senior year. Like I said, I was working with Coach Lonnie, really trying to develop more of my mid-range game because I was really reliant on the 3. But I had solidified myself as more of an all-around player by the time my senior year came around. And so that opened up bigger offers for me from bigger schools, from Power 5 schools. So that's when I committed to Ole Miss.
So let me go back, because I don't think a lot of people understand how this process works. So you sign your national letter of intent to go to Fresno State. The coaches take another position. So tell me how, from the point that you realized that they weren't going to be there, what's the process? So do you consider staying? And then does the new incoming staff try to recruit you? And then kind of what leads you to just, again, open up your recruiting from there?
Okay. Yeah. So they tried to get me to stay. I talked to the coaching staff multiple times.
I'm sorry. Was the staff, was the new coach on the previous staff, or was it a brand new staff?
Brand new staff.
Gotcha. Okay. Because that's important, because you have no relationship with the people coming in.
Yeah. None. Yeah. I had no relationship with the people coming in. So that was already to me. But I had talked to the staff a couple times. I gave them the opportunity to just kind of share what they, what their plans were for me and just if I would be a fit for them and on their team. I mean, I already knew the players before, but I mean, just what their style of play would be like. And I felt, I wanted to reopen my recruiting process because why not? And just see what other options I'd have. And maybe go to a school where I would have a better relationship with the coaches or whatever the case may be. I just wanted to see what my options were. So I did ask for my release, and Fresno State actually put a stipulation on my release regarding the schools that I could go to, which was a list of 20 schools and 2 or 3 schools that were initially in my top 5. So I couldn't go to a majority of
20 is a big list. Typically it's going to be teams in league and then maybe a rival or 2, but 20, that's a big list of schools that they said you couldn't go to.
Yeah, it was the whole Mountain West, the whole Mountain West, and 10 other schools, 10 random schools that they thought I might go to, which I thought was crazy because I had never even stepped foot on their campus, and their coaches left. I don't know. That's just my opinion, but yeah, that
I
that's
think, but
kind
again,
of the,
I don't think people realize, the difficult. What is your at the time? What is your anxiety level of kind of being? I mean, you have this moment when you're so excited and it's like a weight off your shoulders when you do commit to a school. So tell me, like, what's your anxiety level when you have to reopen your recruiting of kind of late in? I mean, it's later in the process, so everybody's
yep.
signed. Talk about how
Mhm.
your anxiety level or maybe the stress level going into that recruiting process.
I mean, it's really overwhelming. It's already overwhelming as is, even before I signed my NLI, but even more so overwhelming because, like you said, most rosters are filled up at this point, and a lot of the schools that I was initially interested in were off the list because of the stipulation. So I had to basically build new relationships with coaches anyways that I didn't really know. So that part was probably pretty overwhelming for me. Was
And
just
then
kind of having to rebuild those relationships or build new ones with other coaches.
And
So
actually, the first time I saw you play in person, it was when you started playing with EBO. You started. We had did a couple of unsigned senior events, and you
mhm.
played well. So talk
Yeah.
about how your performance in those unsigned senior showcases maybe kind of opened up eyes of other schools to maybe have some interest in you.
Yeah, it did. Along with just like how I played my senior year and playing in that tournament, I did start getting looks and offers from Power Five schools, which was exciting because I knew I could play at that level. But again, like I didn't have solid relationships with them as I did with coaches that had previously recruited me. Um, so yeah, then I go on my visit to Ole Miss and um, liked them a lot. They had a lot of really nice things to say to me, and convinced me. And so I ended up choosing Ole Miss and was out there my freshman year. Didn't expect to play much. I mean, I was freshman. I worked hard. I was 1 for 17 from the three the entire year. Like that just goes to show like how much playing time I really got. Um, and uh, I mean, I didn't complain though. Like I like my parents were just like, just finish it out, see. I mean, of course, like transferring had crossed my mind because I was like, well, I don't know if I'm gonna be much of a use here. So it did cross my mind, but talking to my parents, they're just like, stick it out, like give it another year and see how it goes. So I was like, okay, cool. But during the year, my coach told me like, don't worry, like you'll be fine. Just keep working hard. Things are going to work out for you, blah, blah, blah. And then spring workouts come around or season ended. We actually went to the NIT, which was cool. Good experience for me. And then after that, we had started our spring workouts and got through our spring workouts. And it was during finals week. It was actually the day before finals had ended and the day before um, all of us were headed home for a 2 week break before we came back for the summer. He calls us all into his office and, or just team meeting, just we're, talking about what the expectations were of us while we were at home as far as workouts and lifting and all of that. And so that was our, quick brief meeting about it. And then he calls me into his office afterwards and was just like, hey, like, I don't see you playing much next year. I want to help you find somewhere else to go, which was a complete shocker, complete blindside, to me, because he had been telling me like, I'm good. Don't worry. You'll get your time. And then the fact that he told me the day before I was even supposed to fly home and then for 2 weeks and come back, like I already had a round trip flight ticket, to do so. So that was probably just one of the hardest things that I had to go through in college. And that happened after my freshman year. And that was, yeah, I mean, technically it's NCAA prohibited for a coach to do that. Especially because I hadn't gotten in trouble or failed drug tests or anything like that. I did what I was supposed to do. As I was there to play basketball and go to school, and that's what I did. But he had did that to me to open up a roster spot for an incoming player. And so, just processing all of that was very, very difficult for me. And especially the fact that here I am in a situation again where I'm having to start a recruiting process late because all the roster spots from schools recruiting me were already full. So here I am in the situation again. But ended up choosing UCSB to be closer to home.
So I want to go back because you hit on a couple of things that I know, a lot of kids don't know. So I want to go back to you go to Ole Miss, you're a kid from San Diego, you're in Oxford, Mississippi, right? Is that where Ole Miss is? Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me the adjustment for a kid from San Diego, a multicultural kid from San Diego going to Oxford, Mississippi.
Yeah. Oh, it was a complete culture shock for me. I mean, in the South, it's white and black. Like, that's it. I mean,
yep.
People were mislabeling me all the time. I got Mexican, whatever. But I mean, it was just a culture shock for me. But I mean, overall, great experience. I mean, it was nice. I'm not even gonna lie. It was nice being around other Black people, especially with that population from San Diego to Ole Miss. So I felt that I fit in pretty well on the team. And I mean, our coaching staff was even diverse. We had like 2 white coaches, 2 Black coaches. So I did feel comfortable there. I actually really enjoyed my freshman year there, and I met a lot of people that I'm still in contact with to this day. But yeah, I mean, my overall experience was great. It was just on the court, it was just a little difficult working with coaches I didn't have a prior relationship with, but also playing at a completely higher, like one of the highest levels of basketball you could play at the college level. So that was a huge transition for me as well. Yeah.
And how long had the staff at Ole Miss been there?
I believe they were there a year before I got there. I think they were only there a season
going into year 2.
Yeah.
So the reason why I asked that is I don't think people really understand what you said. Okay. So you're saying that you went to Ole Miss on a basketball scholarship, and after a year, you didn't get in trouble. They just decided that this wasn't going to work for you. I guarantee you there's a lot of athletes that don't realize that can happen. So it wasn't anything to do with like I said, a poor attitude or getting in trouble or anything. They just wanted to give your spot to somebody else. And I think that's important because like I said, I know there are athletes out there who think once they get there, that's it. So I'm sure you were, like you said earlier, you were really shocked that could even happen so late in the season. And it seemed like you had no sense that was coming.
I had no sense it was coming. I mean, I have looked into the rules of him doing that. Technically it's illegal. So because I signed, so like there's a lot of technicalities around the contracts and the rules. But yeah, that's what he did. So.
And I think, again, a lot of people, and I literally found this out, specifically. It's weird because I have a cousin and the exact same thing happened to him the same year as you. He was the same year as you. He got a scholarship. He got a scholarship out of high school to go to Idaho State. I think I'm getting it wrong. No, Montana State. Got it right. Anyway, so the same thing happened. It was a new staff, and they were trying to fill their roster. So he went there. They recruited him, and then the whole time after that year 1, they're recruiting the class of kids that they actually want. So after freshman year, they're telling him the same thing that there's no spot for you here this next year. And I knew it's so ironic that I heard about it from my cousin, and then I remember you had came to the Horizon banquet and you told the story, and I hadn't heard. It was like, so to hear that same story twice in such a short span, it's always stuck with me that a lot of kids don't realize that scholarship for those 4 years, 3 years is always up for reevaluation. And I mean, you have to make sure that you're keeping your spot. You earned your spot to get there, but then you really have to keep it. And I just don't think people realize that. So that's one of the main reasons I wanted to talk to you is because I think that's a lesson that a lot of kids can learn. So again, the recruiting process is open back up. So let's walk through how we settled on UCSB.
Yeah, I was still getting recruited by the same schools that recruited me in my senior year, but this time I was able to like actually consider them because I didn't have that stipulation from Fresno State. So
So there was
then I'm
no
like, okay,
restrictions.
now no restrictions this time.
Gotcha.
So now I'm talking. I could even go to a school in the SEC if I wanted to. But I was talking to just a lot of the same coaches had built up that I had built up a relationship with before. But I chose UCSB. Um, Coach Bonnie, the head coach at Coach Bonnie was the head coach at UCSB when I was considering them, but she was at Kansas the year before, and when I committed to Ole Miss, she was recruiting me at Kansas. So I felt okay. I had talked to her before. I'm considering going to UCSB, so that's why I chose UCSB. She was a new coach coming from a Power 5 school to rebuild a program, and that was like my main reason why I chose there. Yeah, I want to be closer to home. I was in the Big West. A lot of the schools were in LA that we'd play, so my parents would be able to see most of my games. And I thought that was a really solid decision for me. And going to a smaller school where I would get more playing time. So it was a humbling experience as well. Um, but so I redshirted my incoming year.
I want to talk about
Yeah.
that, about your redshirt year. So I talked to a lot of kids about the redshirting.
Mm-hmm.
Yours wasn't necessarily by choice because, well, it definitely wasn't by choice. It was due to the transfer rules. But tell me some things that benefited you and your game during that redshirt season.
One, like actually seeing the style of play that she wanted me to be part of the following year. I mean, because it was her first year, my redshirt year, so she was incorporating all of her, you know, she was incorporating her system that year. So I was able to see it in games and see it in practice and actually be part of it in practice, and find my way in that system. I feel like it's so hard to adjust to a system. So I think like having that redshirt year really enabled me to like lock in on what she was trying to do.
What were some of the biggest differences in two systems? If you can maybe share or explain on that.
So, yeah. So like at Ole Miss, we were more of like kind of run and gun, like get out. We did run a little bit of motion. And we had two solid post players that really were like the main, that were the key to our offense. Versus at UCSB, we still stuck to a motion offense, but there was a lot of things that she had us, like she wanted having the same footwork. She wanted us all to defend, like she just had a lot of rules in her offense, like only force players baseline, no middle, just a lot of things that we had to get, a lot of little things that we had to get right in our offense. And so like working on those habits, my redshirt year just became not naturally to me when I finally stepped on the floor the year after. But I mean, my redshirt year really gave me the opportunity to really lock in on the accuracy of my 3-point shot and actually improve that so that I could take on that role when it came time to play.
What about physically? Are you trying to do anything to change your body, or are you just adding muscle? Like what are you doing off the court in terms of strength and conditioning?
Yeah, so there's another player that redshirted with me, but we would have to do extra conditioning when the team had games. Like we would have to hop on the bike or elliptical or any, some low impact, conditioning on our bodies to make sure that we were staying in shape. But also, staying in the weight room was another thing. So, I mean, we did everything that the team did, but we did have to do a little extra when it came to weights and conditioning.
So. And obviously, the primary answer will be not playing. But what are some of the other things that are challenging or hard when you're redshirting, other than actually not being able to play?
I think seeing your team lose is one of the harder things too, because just knowing that you couldn't contribute on the court. I mean, definitely using your voice and being an encouragement on the bench was something that I had to learn to do. But and seeing your team lose is probably really hard. Staying motivated, even in practices, because you're just like, oh, like I'm here practicing. I'm not even going to play. Like, or even just during shoot around the day of the game, like just the fact that I had to be there, even though it was like it was only an hour. Just stuff like that. It's just really hard to like stay motivated, but just knowing like taking each practice and shoot around as opportunity to get better for the following year is just like the mindset that I had to have as a redshirt. So,
do you feel like there's a lack of connection too? Is that something that kind of crosses your mind, that you don't really feel connected to the team because you're not actually playing in the games?
definitely. And like in that year, we had like 4 seniors on the team, so I really wasn't as connected with the team as I was when I was playing.
Which is a big part of the game, is the camaraderie and the familyness of it. But if you don't really feel that complete connection, it almost makes you feel like an outsider to a certain extent.
It did, and like especially because the team is traveling and I couldn't travel. Me and my other teammate couldn't travel, so yeah, we would be stuck in in our apartment while everybody was gone, you know. So, and then even then, like we had to figure out how to stay in the gym while they were gone. So, yeah.
So fast forward, first game of the next season. Like, walk me through it. How pumped are you? Is the adrenaline going? Like, what are you feeling that first game back after basically sitting out 2 years because you didn't play much at Ole Miss and then you had a redshirt season? So like, how excited are you? How pumped up are you? Talk about the feeling of that first game back.
I actually like remember that game. It was an exhibition game. I had dropped like 19. Like I was ready. It felt like my family was there. I couldn't really make a lot of games while I was at home, but my whole family was there. And I just wanted to show out for them and show all those I haven't been able to show, having sat out and not playing freshman year. It was definitely like liberating for me to finally sit out on that court and just show what my game. So.
And you had a lot of success at Santa Barbara. You guys, in particular, you had a game where I'm looking for the exact, how many threes was it?
I had nine threes.
Nine threes. And that was in a tournament, conference tournament game, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So we
talk about the zone, right? They talk about the zone and the basket being big. Tell me about the 9 threes, fresh off a redshirt year, fresh off of not playing. You was in the zone, you was locked in, right?
Yeah, I was in the zone. I mean, our team was very successful. Our team, like we made it to the conference championship that year. And just I think being on that team is probably one of the most fun experiences, just because we all had one goal. And me doing my job, knocking down those threes, like that's what my team needed. And it was just like something that I embraced. And like, yeah, shooting I don't know, like it's, like I said, it's just muscle memory and repetition, like when you're shooting. So it's just, when I made my first one, I just kept shooting. Like it didn't feel, I don't know, it just came natural to me. And they just kept running plays for me to keep doing it. And I just kept knocking them down. So.
And that, I'm sure there's got to be a sense of validation that maybe you never really doubted your ability to play at that level, but that had to be a sense of, okay, I'm definitely, where I need to be.
Yeah, definitely got that. And like, and I consider myself being like a underdog, but that after that tournament, I got like, first team or tournament honors for that. So just for that performance. So that definitely gave me a lot more motivation to it just made me hungry as a player. So.
And you made 76 threes in your time, or no, that was in a single season.
Mm-hmm.
At UCSB. Yeah. And that was so that would have been what, your junior year?
That was my redshirt sophomore year.
Redshirt sophomore year, okay. And then, so let's talk about your redshirt junior year. What are your expectations going into that season, and then kind of talk about how that season goes?
Yeah, that season was a tough season. There's a lot of expectations. I mean, like I said, we went to our conference championship, lost by 1. So we're thinking, okay, we gotta come into this year and do the same thing. But we ended up losing like one key starter and another for off the court reasons. So we were missing some key roles, and my coach told me like I need to step it up in all areas other than just shooting. And so that was kind of different for me because I had taken on a role of knocking down threes. I mean, so there was just a lot more pressure on me and the rest of the team. I think we had like 5 incoming freshmen too that year. So it was just like me stepping up as a leader, stepping up as a captain for the team was different. So like stepping into that role was really hard. And that year we started the season off as like 0-9. So our coach was extremely frustrated with how the season was going. And it ended pretty bad too. She was verbally abusive and fought, and me and along with 4 others actually ended up leaving the program just because of how downhill it went. And that's when so that year I actually graduated with my bachelor's and opened up my recruitment to finish my last year as a grad transfer.
So you when you decide to go to do the grad transfer, you mentioned that typically the process for someone to pick a school is just based off finding a school that doesn't necessarily have a course that at the school you're leaving, which allows you to play. But you kind of took a different approach when you picked your school of choice for your grad transfer. Can you speak on that?
Yeah. So based off the schools that were recruiting me, I did research on all the schools and saw if they had like a 1-year program that I could do. And I looked for something that was in my interest, just because, just because. And so I actually ended up choosing Utah. There were programs there that I could do, but come to find out, the NCAA like doesn't allow you to do a program that your prior school offered. So I had to find a program that, UCSB didn't have, which was Education in Leadership and Policy. And, but it was a 2-year program. So that was like my other problem. So my coach was like, yeah, sorry, like we can't give you the scholarship for your second year because this was my last year of eligibility on scholarship. So I ended up actually talking to my academic counselor, and I talked to my program director and was like, hey, like, is there any possible way like I could condense my classes into a year? And they said, yeah. So I was able to finish. I took 4 classes each semester, and then I stayed for the summer to finish it out. And I was able to get finished with that degree.
So I just need to explain kind of what you said. So in order for a grad transfer to be eligible immediately, the new school has to offer a program that your previous school did not offer. Typically, athletes will take anything that they can, typically something fairly easy, and they do it in a year. You picked something that you were interested in that was going to be a 2-year program, and you made it work in basically a year and a summer. That's extremely impressive.
Yeah, I think the situation that happened to me at Ole Miss actually opened up that door for me to be able to have an extra year of eligibility because I had to redshirt. So it all just kind of circled back in my favor. And yeah, I wanted to do a program that would help me in the future. So, yeah.
So you get to Utah again, kid from San Diego. Probably, I don't think as different as Oxford, Mississippi was. What's the city that the University of Utah's in?
It's in Salt Lake City. Yeah.
Salt Lake City. Okay.
Big city.
I'm going to say Provo. That's BYU. So
right.
Again, I'm sure that's a night and day situation from San Diego. So talk about the adjustment to living in Salt Lake City.
It was, I fell in love with it on my visit, honestly. Salt Lake City is a very, it's a very progressive city. They're down, I lived downtown when I was out there. So it was nothing that I hadn't experienced before. But yeah, I did have a different scenery with the snow, actually experiencing all 4 seasons with the snow and the fall. But yeah, I mean, I felt like I adjusted fine. I mean, it definitely more of a white population out there. Actually, a big Polynesian population as well. But yeah, I didn't find any issues fitting in either there. So
What's your mindset? It's totally different than every situation. So you go to Ole Miss as bright-eyed freshman. You go to UCSB and you sit. So you start off and you're super hungry. What's the mindset for a grad transfer going, back to a Power Five school, Pac-12, and the Pac-12, it is and was loaded when you were there. So kind of talk about how what your mindset was. You're a wily veteran at that point, playing as a grad senior for Utah.
mm-hmm. I think my mindset in general, like even before I even committed to Utah, was this is it. Like I have to prove myself. I want to break records. I want to do all these things my senior year and really just show like this is the player that I am, and I want to go out strong. So I actually chose Utah because it was my biggest opportunity to play in the NCAA tournament. It was a transition for me because, like I said, my redshirt year, I was able to learn a system and take my time getting to know it and all of that. So that was the hardest thing for me was now I'm in another new system, no time to adjust. I mean, I had the summer to like lock in, but my mindset going in was just, I'm going to accept whatever role they give me, like, and I'm going to take it and do my best. And I mean, they recruited me to knock down threes for them, and that's what I did. I came off the bench and knocked down threes. So, yeah.
Did you feel the need to be kind of a veteran presence? Was that something that maybe you did or they asked you to do just because of, again, you had a lot of experience, obviously what you bring on the court, but was that something that they leaned on you for too in terms of leadership and mentorship for the younger players?
Definitely. There's 4 of us. 2 of us actually. There was 3 of us who were actually 5th year seniors on the team, including me, and then we had one normal senior on the team. But they did rely on my experience to share with like the younger. We had 4 freshmen at the time, so just sharing my experiences in the past and just what it takes to be here and all of that was definitely something that my coaches expected me to do. And vocalize that on the floor and on the court as well. So
and the again, like I said, the Pac-12 was loaded. I mean, Oregon is starting to get to the point where they are. Washington was really good. Stanford was really good. Oregon State was really good. And also, you're seeing familiar faces almost on a nightly basis, going back to some of your high school days, including meeting up with getting to play against Dijonais. So what was that experience like of the high level competition and also competing against people that you may have competed or you did compete against in high school?
I mean, it's fun. Like it's really fun, and like it was really fun for me. The Pac-12. I mean, even now, like seeing some of the players I played against in the WNBA, like Sabrina, like I mean, that was an experience that I definitely like. I don't know. There's nothing that can trade for that experience. But yeah, I mean, the Pac-12 is just, I think it's one of the best conferences in the nation. So that just me having that opportunity was something that I really had to embrace.
And how was it like when you how many times did you play against Stanford? Once or twice?
We only had to play them once. Yeah. And we beat them.
Played against Dijonais. I remember, I knew there was at least once. What was that like?
It was fun.
You guys were kids.
Yeah, we played them in Salt Lake City. And yeah, playing against Dijonais is different. I mean, because we're both kind of more mature now, different players now. And it was really fun. I actually have a picture of us playing against each other. But yeah, it's cool.
So how does the season end at Utah?
We actually ended with we had 3 ACL injuries. Wow. So we actually started the season 11-0 before our first loss, and which was in conference. and we beat Stanford because we only played them once. We were beating teams like we were beating Oregon State. We lost really close games, like one by one to like USC, Arizona State, and those were the games that we needed to win in order to like solidify like our ticket into the NCAA tournament. And we couldn't do that with our lack of numbers. We had like I think 6-7 healthy players at this point coming towards the end of the season. So we kind of like just had to deal with that. And yeah, that's pretty much why we didn't make the NCAA tournament. So.
And you had some success at Utah as well. I'm seeing you had another big shooting game where you hit eight threes in the game at Utah.
Yeah.
And then you finished fourth in the conference to who you mentioned before, a future first overall number one pick in the draft, Sabrina Ionescu. So again, it was even though it was 1 year, you definitely left your mark on the program.
Mm-hmm.
So you end up graduating the summer. So the season finishes, the school year finishes, and then you graduate that summer, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And then what happens? What happens? You finish school. What's the first thing what's the next step for you?
Oh, it was that time was probably like another hard time for me, just trying to figure out what's next. I actually didn't really consider playing pro until I was done because I missed it so much. So I was talking to the Filipino national team, their coaches, was working on getting a dual citizenship with them and like seeing if I would be a good fit for their team. So I went out there for 2 weeks and I left there just thinking, okay, I don't know if this is for me anymore. And it was just that I didn't fit in well with their style of play there. And then I also did have dreams to go to law school. So I was just like, okay, you know what, maybe, this was a great experience. Maybe it's time for me to just lock down on a legal career. And so I got a job at a law firm. I've been working doing admin work for the past year. Just got recently promoted to a role where I get to use my master's. So my master's came in handy so far. So that's what I've been doing. And I want to go to law school. So that's like my next dream.
So I read an article about you, and it says that you had a instructor at UCSB that was kind of instrumental in you going down the path of where you are in terms of law school, but more importantly, kind of where we are in the climate now with the social justice. So can you tell me about your time when you were with, I think it's Professor Mia White?
Yeah. So she was the first Black female professor, teacher. I mean, I had Coach Carrington in high school. I had a Black role model in high school, but I mean, seeing like a woman of color in a high position as a professor, and this class, it was the class that I took was just a general education class, but it was a civil rights movement class. And so that was different. Actually taking a course on the civil rights movement versus just hearing about it once a year, in high school during Black History Month. So taking an actual course on that was just very enlightening for me. But also having a professor who looked like me. She was actually also half Asian. She was half Black, half Korean. So seeing a professor that's also Black and Asian like me, just really, I don't know, it just really spoke to me. And like, I remember going to her office hours. She was telling me how, I don't know what you're majoring in, but you need to get a minor in Black studies. And I was like, okay, so I did, which allowed me to further my education on what was going on, what's been happening to Black and brown communities across the United States, from mass incarceration to, the school to prison pipeline to now like police brutality, killing of, white cops killing Black, people. And just so that kind of just learning about all of that in college, just kind of sparked an interest in how I want to use my voice to help others. And the lack of education that I had in high school about all these issues that are going on in our neighborhoods, and then learning about it in college just really put things into perspective for me. Just there's just so much information out there that to learn, and having her and hearing her encouragement to me to do so was just, I don't know, it really just spoke to me and wanted me to pursue, I guess, a legal career.
And
So
knowing your parents, also know, very strong parents, and I know your brothers well. I'm sure that it probably kind of took you back to kind of the things that you came up along with in your upbringing with, like I said, your very, very strong parents. So a couple of things, I'm
mhm.
sure that they were thrilled to know that you were going to take that route, but also probably felt validated in kind of the things that they instilled in you at a very young age.
Definitely, definitely. And I actually, had 2 internships in college as well, like in the off season, which were in criminal law and criminal defense and all of that. So I was actually still, I, I still was tapping into, okay, what am I going to do after basketball? Like I wanted to spark my interest and figure out what I really wanted to do. So I feel like I had prepared myself in college to, um, yeah, for a position that I'm in now. So.
And before we had all this craziness with COVID, I seen you doing the club stuff with us. So is
Mhm,
that
mhm.
something that you can see a future in? I mean, obviously it's tough to balance a law career and basketball, but is that something that you want to still try to have your foot in this game, and maybe mentor young girls, or still find a way to work with young athletes?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm mentoring like 2 girls right now. So I mean, I definitely want to share all the knowledge that I've gained. And yeah, so I'm still interested in coaching and all that. Yeah.
And I seen you doing stuff with Foresight Academy. Talk to me about kind of what you do there. Just is it just like open runs and just talking
Yeah.
to kids that show up? Talk about the Foresight, because I've been trying to get over there to check it out a couple times, and my schedule's always messed up. But it sounds like it's a good thing they got going over there.
Yeah. So Sean, he started the program. He went to UCLA. He's seen me play when I was over there, but he reached out to me just saying, "Hey, like, would you mind coming through to one of our runs?" So I did, and it's I think it's great. I think with what's happened with basketball season being canceled and all that, so he hosts these runs where high school players can play against college players, or I think he has a run for like middle school age group as well. And he does a lot of sports science work too with bodies and just making sure ACL prevention, stuff like that. He really, I think his goal is to not only like bring this girls San Diego basketball community together, but also to teach athletes about their bodies and whatnot. So yeah, that's what
So
he's
I'm
doing.
gonna taking a lot of your time. Great conversation. I'm gonna let you go on this, but let's say you're talking to, we're in a normal situation. So a young lady, coming off of her senior year, what advice would you give her as she starts to make the decision on what school to pick? What kind of advice would you give someone? Say, hey, Sarah, what kind of, I'm thinking about, trying to figure out what school I want to go to. What would be some advice or some tips you would give?
I would say my first like tip is to just go where you're wanted. Um, and
Expand on that.
that's
What do you,
because
that sounds simple, but what do you mean by that?
um uh whoever's recruiting you and talking to you every day, or like on a consistent basis, they want you and they want you to play. And that's something that I didn't really understand. Like, I mean, because it does get, the recruiting process does get overwhelming. Like it is intimidating to talk to coaches on the phone and stuff. But I mean, the fact that they're putting in this time to talk to you, I mean, their days are very, very, very busy. So it's just like it just shows their level of interest in you and where they see you fitting into their program, because it's definitely easy to get caught up in the fancy of the facilities and the gear and just all of that. Like it's definitely easy to get caught up in that, but at the end of the day, like if this coach at a fancy school isn't talking to you consistently like a coach at a mid-major school is, then you just have to take that into consideration. Like, where am I going to play? And if that's your goal to play, then you need to go where you're wanted. So that's just my tip. And I wish I had initially done that the first go around. And then also doing your research, talking to old players, taking when you're talking to coaches, taking that time seriously, like really diving into what they have to offer, what the school has to offer academically. And like I said, or following them on social media as well. Like, I think that's how you can get a really good perspective on their interactions with their players, coaches' interaction with their players, and even going to games. That's part of doing your research, seeing how coaches coach in games. And then also just learning how to advocate for yourself. Having tough conversations with your coaches in college, or even in high school, just what you can do to improve, and not allowing your parents to get involved in that process because they just don't see it. It's just a bad look. Like, they don't respect you as much. If you can't speak for yourself, then, why would they take what you have to say seriously? So just learning how to advocate for yourself and, doing your research and all of that. I do have a quick example I want to share because I did follow this. I followed this scouting page on Twitter. I just follow a lot of different pages on Twitter, just on news on women's basketball. And I did this since I was in high school. So when I was actually getting recruited for my grad transfer year, I saw a tweet that this coach was leaving a school. It was a rumor. And this coach had actually called me like later that day saying, hey, like, what's up? Like, we want you here, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, well, pause. Like, I just saw a tweet on Twitter saying, there's rumors that you may be leaving. Like, is this true? And she was like, no, it's not true. We would never leave the program. Like, we love it here, blah, blah, blah. I kid you not, the next day they're gone. Like, and so that's why I'm just like, it's very important to do your research and just know like where like what you're getting yourself into, really. So
I want to touch on one more thing that I think that is obvious because of your journey is speaking to the idea of, obviously your recruiting was open when you decided to go to Ole Miss, and then you reopened it when you went to UCSB, and then, the process of the grad transfer. So to me, it's obvious that you obviously didn't burn any bridges or close any doors or leave any relationships with those other coaches that were recruiting you on a bad note. So tell me how, tell young athletes how that's important too, that even if you're not going to a school, it's important that you don't ghost them and you tell them, I'm not going to come. I appreciate you recruiting. Talk about that for me.
You have to have the courage to tell a coach, hey, like, I'm, thank you for recruiting me, but I'm closing this door, like, you just have to have that. And because they just respect you more, like, like they see that you are taking them seriously and just that, and so since I did that, my dad actually forced me to tell schools that I wasn't interested, even if it was just a small, like a school that I had zero interest in going to, just giving them the time to tell them like, hey, like, thanks for recruiting me, but I'm looking at other options right now. Like, that's all it takes. And I think the fact that I did that and that my dad forced me to do that allowed me to maintain these relationships because they just respected me for it, versus just ghosting them. They're probably like, oh, I know their character. We don't want them.
And it's easier said than done because when you don't foresee a situation where you're going to be leaving. You think that when you commit to Ole Miss, you're going to be there for 4 years. It doesn't matter about those other schools. But to your point, you never know. So it's important that you do keep all of those relationships as positive as possible because, coaches get hired in other positions. Even if you would have went to Ole Miss and averaged 50 a game, the coach could have got fired and you could have been in a situation. So I think, like you said, it's important. It's super important to never burn down that bridge and keep those relationships positive and just be professional and let them know, hey, I'm sorry, I've decided to go another route.
Yeah, and that's what ended up happening. Yeah.
Yeah, I
was just saying that's what ended up happening for me at Utah because there were two assistants that recruited me when I was in high school ended up at Utah, and so I ended up playing for them there. So,
and again, you never know that assistant who's the fourth or fifth assistant could be, you never know who that person could be one day.
Yeah.
You know, they always say treat everybody the same, because you never know when your paths may cross again.
Definitely.
Well, SP, this has been everything I expected, everything I hoped. You know, I'm always been a big fan of you. Watching you play, you know, I have so much respect for your mother and father. Great people. I love your brothers well. Always super feisty, super passionate.
Yeah.
And I just think this was very important, because I know a lot of kids don't have any idea what the process is. And to you, your example of you can do everything right and still not have things go your way. But I think your resilience and your ability to talk about some situations that, you know, a lot of people may have carried a grudge or harbored or allowed these poor situations to maybe make them jaded, or maybe not even want to play no more. Or you could have came on here and bashed some people. And, you know, the fact that you didn't, again, really speaks to your character. So I know a lot of people, parents and coaches, are going to learn a lot, you know, if they listen to this. And I really appreciate your insight, and thank you so much for coming on here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And I look forward to seeing you on the court, hopefully doing some club stuff sooner than later, because it's like we just got a little tease of it, a couple weeks, and then we shut down. So I'm excited. I think you can bring a lot to the program. Like I said, just, you know, shooting mechanics and footwork and all of that stuff, not to mention just, you know, being an outstanding role model. So I really hope, the selfish me hopes that you can stay involved with us and keep being a great resource for us to, you know, help this game grow, not only with our program, but what you're doing with Foresight Academy as well. So I will be in touch. I'm gonna lean on you a lot more now that I've nailed you down for this interview. And don't be shocked if I reach out to you to maybe do this again soon.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks a lot, Sarah. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.